Hi everyone, this is Felicia and I am joining you guys through a video that I edited for today. Unfortunately, I can't be there. I know you guys care so much, but I'm at my best friend's wedding and my partner had a game last week, so everything's just conflicting. So I can't be there, he couldn't be there, so we resulted to this. Hopefully this makes sense. The topic that we are covering today is Reconstructing Gender Norms Through Ritual Communication, a study of African transformation. The longest article that any of us has had thus far. It's really long, and when I first got it, I was thinking to myself, why is this so important? What does this have to do with anything? It's actually really, really important. Especially after reading through this, I understand why it's so long now. I'm going to assume that you guys know what gender norms are because that's what we've been covering throughout this whole quarter. So I'm going to go ahead and skip over to explaining what ritual communication is, or at least what the idea of ritual communication is. Ritual communication is basically meaning to share, to commune, communing with your neighbors, communing with nature, communing with God. It's the sacred ceremony that draws persons together in fellowship and commonality. So those are the two key words I want you guys to remember. Fellowship and commonality. Now, back to the first question that I had originally asked. Why is this so important? What does this have to do with anything? Well, evidence shows that an unbalanced idea of gender norms leads to harmful consequences that are both personal and political. We can think of a lot of different examples, even off the top of our heads, of things that we have witnessed or that we have experienced ourselves or that we see in the media that has a lot to do with an unbalanced idea of what gender norms is. So what are the consequences of this unbalanced way of thinking? Well, it limits life chances for both men and women. It affects communities. It impairs the health of everybody, from women to men to children. It limits girls' access to schooling. It contributes to ongoing violence for women. And most of all, it has contributed to feminization of HIV and AIDS. In 2006, the sub-Saharan African female constituted 61% of people who are infected by HIV. That's a high number for females to be infected. There's an article that I had found that was written a couple years ago, but it talks about a woman who came out and had shared with the public how she was abused by her husband and how this is something that normally happens. She is from Uganda, and some of the feedback that she got from the women was not so positive. Actually, one of the women went as far as to saying she should have kept it in her own family. I come from north of the country where women are told to respect their husbands even if they are abused or beaten up. She then adds, I am happy with the tradition because men are more superior to us, and I think without men we would not be where we are now. This is something that is a common belief, not only in Africa but around the world. It's universal. So what they wanted to do was they wanted to reconstruct the way that people view their gender roles. A study of African transformation basically is video portraits of ordinary people from Tanzania, Uganda, and Zambia who have overcome gender-based obstacles. Basically what they did was they followed these individuals and they taped their lives and they edited it, and they took 9 of these stories and they shared it with other people that were participating in this program in hopes that they too would learn from these stories and that they would see that if an ordinary person such as these people that we have followed, can overcome these different obstacles, so can you. Now, remember in the beginning of this video, we talked about what ritual communication is. It uses the word fellowship and commonality. Commonality is such an important word to this study, because what they wanted to do was they wanted to take individuals that were ordinary people. If you notice, they didn't use rich elite people because they wanted to be able to reach the masses. If you want to reach the masses, you have to use ordinary people that have the same common problems. People have to see that someone just like them made it through, and it gives them the courage and the strength that they need to understand and know that they too can make it through, because they are not in it alone. When you see someone that you feel is above you, or that is stronger than you, or more bold than you, it makes you feel like you don't have the same chance of making it through. Okay, so this next clip that I wanted to share with you guys is one man's testimony, his journey in discovering himself. So I hope you guys enjoy.
My father used to beat my mother and call her names. He used to couch her as an excuse to deny her and to deny us our rights to peace. He would say, "Women and children should respect the head of the family, and no one can rule besides me in this house. It's my culture. Musoro wemba ndini chete ndinotonga." I had to ask myself what kind of culture that could be. I was young. I couldn't do anything, but I wanted to fight him back. When I was bigger, I went to a boarding school. I used to worry about my mom when I was away. I wondered what my dad was doing to her and what would happen when I went home for the holidays. I couldn't concentrate with all the wondering. I joined a gender and HIV/AIDS club that had more girl members than boys. I learned the many misconceptions my schoolmates had about gender. For the boys, gender was about women's issues. It had nothing to do with being a man. This disturbed me because I knew from my own experience how gender-based violence affects both women and men. In my work today with the Padare Men's Forum on Gender, we challenge young men's ideas about what a man should be like. When they say men should take risks, because that's what being a man is about, kuve murume chaiye kuzvishingisa nekuzvipinza mutsaona kuti anzi murume, we point out that certain kinds of risks are not about being brave. They are about getting HIV. As a man, I want to change the thinking of other men and young boys about the roles they play in life. As husbands, fathers, members of communities, I vowed myself not to use violence in my life. A few years ago, I was sitting with my dad in the garden, and we started talking about a domestic violence matter that had happened recently. Right away, he brought up the times he had been violent. He apologized for what he had done to us and to my mom. I could see that he is a different person than he was. He respects my mother and us as his children. My father's story tells me that our strength as men doesn't have to be for hurting. Instead, it can be for finding the courage to change.